Hi, good evening everyone. I'm assuming it's evening where you are. It's always evening here. Tonight we've got a wonderful show scheduled, including an interview with electronic music mastermind Simeon Rodgers, where we talk his new single 7 Years and his incredible live shows. We'll also be heading to the social media polls to see what's going on with you and the music you love during these challenging times. Serious, it's getting scary out there. We'll be chatting about the gigs that you've missed, the gigs that have been cancelled, the albums that you hope will come from this. We'll get onto that later though. But before... oh, fuck me. Before all that, let's catch up with this weekend's releases. Dropped the other day, JW Paris, local Bedfordshire boys, with their new single Royalty. Cracking piece of good fun indie music there. Yeah, guitars all around, we're having a good time. No, seriously, I saw these guys the other day. That was actually the last show I saw before I decided to head into quarantine. And they were brilliant. They put on a wicked live show. Looking forward to hearing more from these guys. So it's JW Paris with Royalty. Car Seat Headrest just dropped their new tune, Martin. I like what they're doing with this new stuff. I've been following them for a bit now. But it's good to hear some more electronic elements. It's definitely something I'm trying to do in my music. So it's nice to hear that. I don't want to be jumping on the bandwagon, but at least I'm following the curve. You know what I mean? Same with Enter Shikari, their new tune, Tina, Tina. That is brilliant. I tell you what, there's some sounds in that record. The LFOs and stuff, the wobbles they do with their bass lines reminds me of 2008, and I'm not complaining at all. Their last album was wicked. I'm looking forward to some more stuff from them. Then we got the new record from Run the Jewels. I'm assuming it's DJ Premier on the beat. Probably should have done a little bit of research, but it doesn't matter. Fuck it. It's a wicked tune. Classic Run the Jewels flows. Not going to complain though. Like, you get what you get with the Run the Jewels track. It's good energy. It's good fun. The bars are smart as hell. It's nice. It's real nice. A couple of albums. First up, Childish Gambino. I don't know what it is with this dude. I cannot listen to this man's records. I don't know why. Literally, I'll put them on and I'll get distracted, I'll get bored or whatever. I don't know, I just never gelled with him. I like the odd single. I think he's a very talented man. I think he's a very funny man. But I don't know why when I put these records, so I listened to about 6 tracks of this new record. Gave up. Sorry. I literally couldn't pay attention. It is what it is. I'll try again next week. I've got time. And then finally the Chats, the lads from Australia, self-proclaimed grubs, making their cookie cutter punk music, we'll call it. Literally, if you want some fun punk songs, just to get a bit mad at, just to have some fun with. I was doing my 30 minutes of exercise today and I listened to that record. It's 30 minutes long and it got me pumped. It got me fucking pumped. They are, like I said, cookie cutter songs. They're whatever. They're the standard punk that you are so used to. Except there's one tune on there. I can't remember the name of it right now. Let's have a look. Identity Theft. Although I didn't actually tell when the song started, I don't know whether that was on purpose or whether it just sounded so like the song before it. Identity Theft, I very much did enjoy. It actually developed into a nice little, I don't know, post-punk situation towards the end. I liked it a lot. It's worth checking out. This week on my YouTube channel, I released the first in a series discussing the songs most important to me. This episode talks Robbie Williams' Millennium, one of the first songs I'll remember. So make sure to check that out. I wrap the whole thing up with a cover. It's kind of a passion project for me. I'm going to be doing a few of these. We'll see over the next... It's hard trying to fucking do a YouTube channel when you're locked in the house. I haven't actually got a camera, so maybe there's going to be some more video essay stuff coming. Anyway, that's why we're here, but that's fine. We're fucking here. We love it. We're having a good time. Alright, here we go. We got a great guest to kick things off with the podcast. Simeon Rodgers has been making the rounds playing drums professionally for years, but it's since 2018 that he's been getting himself some attention due to his brilliant releases and impressive live shows. Simeon joins me today on Skype. As you know, we're self-isolating. So the audio isn't the clearest for the first minute. However, from there, we should be okay. But first, here's a clip of the new single, 7 Years, from Simeon Rodgers.
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's
no problem.
It's fun. It's nice to be here. Yeah,
it's kind of been cobbled together with after recent events, but we're not going to go into that.
But let's be honest, sort of independent music is only ever cobbled together, isn't it? Music in itself is, cobbling of sorts. So
yeah, 100%, man.
We are all shoemakers.
Exactly, man. And luckily, I've got all the gear here to be able to do this because being stuck at home and stuff, it's no issue. But
that's perfect. That's good.
So I got a few questions, but we'll just see how we get on. And something I'm going to ask all my guests, because I find it's very interesting, is when you first got your hands on a DAW and you kind of had free reign to actually make something, what kind of music came out? What was the first stuff you produced yourself?
I mean, I think if we're all being honest, the answer for everybody should be bad music, really. But understanding that's absolutely fine. That's a good thing. It's been an interesting one, I guess. Like my journey, when I was in my college years, so it was sort of 17, 18 was first introduction to, I think it was Logic 5, Logic 6 back in the day. Back in the eMagic days. This was before Apple owned them and things. I mean, it was god awful. But the thing is, you're there's so much to learn. You're as a sort of soundscaper, sound designer, as an audio engineer, as a just even sort of maneuvering around a piece of software, it's a complex thing. But what I find interesting in terms of, for me, making music, it's actually a really new thing. I've sort of had this slightly interesting, slightly backwards journey with audio, digital audio workstations and just music in general. Like, I mean, I grew up in bands as a drummer, but then I sort of moved out of that into working for other people. So as, an Ableton programmer and sound engineer and various, sort of musical director, various things within that. So I had this large chunk of my 20s, I was kind of doing this for other people and learning a hell of a lot. Super interesting, getting insight into other people's music on a real detailed sense. But for me, making my own music, I still stand by it. Like, the original stuff was bad and I didn't play people for years. It was like I was making music for like 4 or 5 years without playing anything, and then I just started playing little things to people. I remember sat down, I'd been telling a friend about, a really good friend of mine, about sort of some of the stuff I've been doing, and she was like, "Do you want to play it to me?" And then I kind of had to build myself up to play it, and then eventually, sat down, and I'm sat there, sort of cold sweats, sweaty palms, kind of just feeling like this is the worst thing. So it's a funny one, really. I guess. Go on.
So, when do you think kind of Simeon Rodgers as the outfit that it is now? When did that kind of start, and when did you start making and producing that kind of music?
Well, I mean, to be honest, all part of this same era, really. Like, if we're now March 2020, it was December 2018 when I sort of, I think it was maybe November 2018 when I sat down and played stuff to my friend, which was, like I said, the first time I'd ever really played anything, out loud to people.
All right.
It's madness. I mean, since I've built up in and around a whole bunch of other stuff, I guess in a way, because I'd spent, probably about 6 years previous to that working with some really, really fantastic artists, really talented. You kind of go, well, I'm not good. I'm not as good as them.
Yeah.
And, as a musical director, I was dissecting their music. I was getting their stems. I could see every little detail they were putting in to their music and their sound built around that. So, yeah, the coming down to me, it started end of 2018, so just over a year ago, really. We're sort of approaching 18 months, I guess. It was a combination of, my years of, what I was doing as, what I was listening to, what sounds I grew up listening to, things I liked when I was playing drums more, sort of, I have this background in building synthesizers and stuff, so there's a lot of electronica influences. But even then, you're sort of then finding out, I never wanted to just make music that sounded exactly like stuff that was out there, so there was a lot of trial and error. I think probably if I was to go through my laptop, I probably got 150 or so little bits that are just never gonna they're just never gonna get heard. But amongst those, some things move into later stages of development. So it's an interesting one, man.
You said about going on tour with other artists, working with them. What is it that you actually do on a day-to-day basis, roughly? I mean, generally speaking, the easiest thing for people to understand, I guess, is I'm a sound engineer, so I turn it up. Sort of more stuff behind the scenes and less, arguably more impactful on a performance, but less obvious. A lot of the stuff I do is in and around this role called musical director. So generally speaking, I'll work with an artist. They'll have, let's say, they've recorded an album, and they come to me and go, I want to make this work really well live. So, sometimes it's just a matter of kind of cracking the whip in rehearsal and sort of, being that outside pair of ears and communication giver to make the whole thing work. A lot of what I do, I work with a lot of electronic kind of crossover, electronic pop, dance artists. A lot of what I do is based in and around electronic music, electronic technology, like music technology. So within musical director, that role, there's quite often I'll be programming Ableton things, working with people on synth sounds, working with drummers on electronics, interfacing with other sound engineers for, best ways of, making it work live. And then, a thing I also really enjoy within that role is it's the performative side of it as well. I'm quite sort of, I have this ideal that it's, there's so much that can be done with electronic music equipment, DAWs, samplers, MIDI instruments and things all over the place. But it's still, we need to be performing on stage. So quite often what I'm doing with artists is working with them to work out, well, one, what do they actually need to perform, or what does, members of the band need to perform, and then what don't they, or what is going to hinder them, or is it even that interesting? They could be knob twiddling for days, but if they're sort of stressed and really static on stage, then what's the point? Where's the performance?
Where is the performance? It's an interesting one when I try and sort of shed light on my own performance in that regard, understanding that my performance is almost entirely knob twiddling. But there's even silly little things like and sort of the setup of the equipment on stage. I've recently just shifted that around to hide myself less, if that makes sense.
Right.
I used to have like a table in front of me, and I've now moved that to the side. So if I am booty shaking and bobbing around, it's somewhat more obvious.
Yeah.
There's a few things, there's a number of things I've definitely brought forward from watching other people. I don't know, there's an interesting thing. I mean, it's very Jack White of him to say it, but Jack White in that It Might Get Loud documentary a number of years ago, it was him and a couple of The Edge and I forget another guitarist, all talking about being rock and roll guitarists.
Yeah.
But Jack White talks about this one interesting thing, which is he was saying, on stage, especially if you do these things time and time again, and your team behind you are really, really great, and everything's just immaculate and perfect all the time. He was like, oh, cool. I realize I'm really bored of that. So what he would do, he would just make things just a touch too far out of reach. Like he would sort of be like, if he knows that he's got 2 beats to go from this part of the stage to that part of the stage, he'd put the thing he needed to end up at 3 beats away, like he'd put an extra couple of meters, so we had to just work a bit harder to get there. So there's we can be so slick in music, and I'm a firm believer that we should be, because there's no point stressing, because then that just reigns in performance. But I think that kind of ethos of just having some elements where it's like, oh, there's a bit of danger, or there's a bit, you can push stuff a bit too hard.
I can't remember exactly where I got it from or who said it, but there was something about in search of perfection, whether perfection actually exists, or can you be better than perfection? And they spoke about a gymnast who did her routine absolutely perfectly, but you could tell the whole time she was putting so much into it, and it was on the edge of, like, it was by the edge of her teeth, like everything she did, and that's what made it so incredible, because she was pushing herself to do it a little harder, to do it. But I've been to 2 of your shows, and one was about 6-7 months ago, and I didn't know what to expect or anything about your music. You were supporting someone else. We'd met, but you were supporting someone else that we knew.
For sure.
And it was an incredible performance. I was there with Javaid, superstar DJ, producer Javaid,
and just wonderful fellow.
Just great bloke. I was with him, and we left that performance so amazed. But you did say about because the more recent one, I did notice your performance was great still, but you had opened the stage up a bit more. I could see more of what was going on, because there was literally things. The first time I saw you, and this was before I'd spoken to you about it, I couldn't even fathom what you were doing with those knobs on stage. You were doing so much, and I was just like, what is happening? What is going on here? But it worked. It was really nice to sit a bit more open and see kind of what was going on. Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's an interesting one, the setup, because of my, let's say, knowledge and background working in live music, and let's say making shows work, because it's there's lots of barriers to entry, or things that can go wrong on a live stage. So a lot of what I do in my the greater sort of the larger cog of my work, a lot of that is very much problem solving, or predicting a problem that could happen, and then sort of working backwards and making sure it potentially doesn't happen. So the way I built and set up my system for live, well, one interesting thing, I can't afford to double everything up and have like a studio and a live. So one interesting thing is that is my studio, short of some speakers, and I mean, yes, to be honest, short of some speakers and a couple of additional bits of gear that I don't want or need to use live. That is my studio that I bring out on stage.
That's very cool.
And it's primarily the instruments that are used to make the music. So there's some sounds and things that can be pulled forward there, but it's an interesting one. Like an amount of the stuff starts at sort of presets that I've built, so like there's lots of MIDI firing off left, right and center throughout the whole show, and where possible the synths are getting their presets that I built, they're getting armed and and then the MIDI's piped to them, and I'm kind of sound designing beyond that. There's a lot of it, like I said, it's knob twiddling, and if I was to belittle myself and belittle what I'm doing, a lot of it is just playing with filters, but there is so much power and sound design within that.
It's very impressive knob fiddling, I'll tell you that.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing I have beyond that, which is the next level of control but intrigue as well, is everything submixed back into Ableton. And what I have there is, there's a whole bunch of stuff getting automated, turned on and off, and also just like controlling, there's lots of EQ and compression, sort of holding things in place. I remember a couple of years ago seeing the Chemical Brothers at All Points East in London, and it was a really interesting one with their show because they really rag it. You can tell that they're pushing those synths hard, and it's there's a lot of human influence there. It's lots of it's not perfect filter sweeps. It's like sometimes you hear them just jump into this, they've just nudged a control and it's just pushed it really hard. But then because there is so much controlling that, you can be ragging the resonance on some really nasty kind of acidy filter and it's just like blasting and blazing. But then there's somewhere further down the chain, in terms of understanding the power of signal chains and audio processing, something is just reining that in and enough so that you can be really human about it. A bunch of the synths I have, I think I have like 6 or 7 synth voices on stage, and I think at least 2 of them, I think 2 of them are completely analog. So they are what they are. There's no preset. So there's definitely times where I've not, especially with my modular synth, I've kind of forgotten to nudge a couple of the parameters. You've got to think, maybe sometimes 2 songs ahead. And, so when that line comes in, because the MIDI is firing to that thing, I'm not turning any MIDI on and off in terms of, the actual notes. So there might be a moment where I'm like, oh God, I've got to quickly jump around because, it's just nasty because it's where, it's at the peak of the previous song's sound. And now I need to quickly rein it back in. But then that's a really cool thing. I must admit I was quite happy, because it's still such a new thing and I've not done many shows. But the last show you saw me at, I filmed it and just recorded the stereo output of everything. And I must admit, I was actually quite happy with, with the mix, understanding that, the way I offer my mix to front house, it's completely mixed. Like they can't do anything short of a little bit of EQ and compression. It's all submixed in Ableton. So I was kind of like, nothing was untoward there. And even those moments where like I just and I do it on purpose as well, mainly because it's fun and it's like you can move these really powerful instruments into really nasty, aggressive, or really soft and subtle or ambient places. I guess that's the thing, really with my set, I just see it as sound design, sound design in and around some songs I've created or written, and that and a bit of singing that is a whole other world of pain for me. So that's an interesting one.
Well, it's mention about sound design. We'll get onto your new single, 7 Years. I think that's a really great piece of music, awesome sound design. But what I'd say is it feels like a soundscape. It feels like a real journey of kind of traveling through this different sound design.
I mean, it was sort of an accidental journey. I mean, without going too in depth, it's the actual the title 7 Years refers to the length of a relationship I had, and it just turned out that the journey sonically sort of in a way kind of matches it fairly well. But no, it's there's definitely sort of 3 chapters in the sonic of that. thing. I think it was also one of the earlier tracks that I sort of finished off while I was still kind of trying to, not necessarily shoehorn, but I was still exploring ways of playing drums. A lot of what I was doing when I wanted to start making music was to be able to play drums more.
Yeah.
I must admit, in the last year, that's become less of a priority. I'm sort of, as a producer of my own music and understanding my own sound more, I know when I want drums, like acoustic drums, and when, either be it sort of drum machines, or I do lots of things with ambient samples and stuff that I chop up and manipulate and make them into sort of percussive sounds. But yeah, that track, it's definitely a journey.
Are the drums that come in, I don't know, about midway through, the kind of breakbeat stuff, is that live acoustic drums then?
Yeah, that's me in my little studio in Haringey. I mean, to be honest, it's actually a loop. I think it's like a 4-bar loop. There's some sort of manipulation throughout it, especially towards the end of that part where I sort of, I'm moving it into a big sort of, digital reverb space, and sort of crunching it and, sort of messing it up a bunch. But that's just me in my tiny little studio.
Dude, it sounds great, and it does sound huge for a tiny little studio. I've had people message me about oh my god, did you hear Simeon's track, like when you dropped it a couple of weeks ago, just like friends and stuff, and I was like, yeah dude, it's really great, and we're all looking forward to more of it as well.
Well, actually today, I mean the whole release of the music, because it's so new and I'm so unpracticed at sort of the self-promotion side of things, I'm being very chilled and just I just absolutely just love making the creative side of stuff. That's something that I've always been creative. It was sort of on hold for a number of years while I was focusing on work and other people's creativity and supporting that in them. So doing it for myself is a new thing. So like, for instance, today I've just put out like the video for 7 years. It's sort of a weird concept that sort of fell into place over a number of evenings of quietly thinking stuff through. But it's, I mean, you couldn't really tell, but it's the whole thing is a whole bunch of dinosaur toys that I spray painted glittery and then put them on a record turntable. Is it? And then shot a bunch of lights, and it's all a whole bunch of me playing around with camera lenses.
For sure. Well, I've watched the video, and I would not be able to tell you it was that.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's an interesting one. To be honest, it's sick, though. What I've been really enjoying in music making, and a lot in the sort of artistic side, like the visual side, because there's a whole bunch of stuff I've done that's sort of stockpiled, ready for as and when I release it. I'm really into, and I guess this is partly within the live performance as well, it's sort of really into the human error or the sort of accidental brilliance of something, like for instance in the 7 years video, it just shocked me. And when there was so I had like a really, really shallow depth of field on the lens. Yeah. So it was, we're sort of talking, it was only focusing certain millimeters, I think, pretty much. It felt like that in the depth of field. And it was this one, and then I'm sort of zooming in and out. The whole video is a single shot. There's some edited stuff like on top of it. Yeah. But the whole kind of color-based thing is a single shot. And I was just moving the zoom, like the focus through these dinosaurs spinning around on this record player. And there was the point where it kind of goes like really kind of streaky, like, because it's all very soft and sort of blurry. Yeah. And then it gets to this point where it's like just really like linear across the screen, and that was just, I was like shocked by this, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, it's just so cool.
I'm skipping through the video right now. Found it about halfway through.
I mean, that's it exactly. Yeah, and that's pretty much like the depth of field just hitting the sparkles on the the glittery dinosaurs.
Damn, that's good. That came out cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's a very sort of, I went to the Tate Modern a lot last year as well for inspiration, and there's some incredible exhibitions there that sort of, in a way, reassured me that you can sort of do this stuff from like an artistic perspective rather than from like we need to make a music video thing. And it's not belittling music videos in the slightest.
No.
It's just that, especially where most of this is me doing it by myself, not having teams of people or God forbid any money. Like it's, I'm doing all of these projects and visual things, very inspired by some artistic stuff, sort of like, let's say, quote unquote, like legit artists rather than, specifically just music video things. So it's fun, man.
No, and it works. And I like you just said about the fact that you did it on your own. And I like that you do so much on your own. And it's really kind of, because I do a lot of my stuff on my own, but I know how much work goes into it. So when stuff comes together and stuff sounds great and it looks great, it's really like, it's very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, credit where credit's due. A really good friend of mine, Isabel Gracefield. She did the final mixes on the tracks. The majority of which was her fine tuning my mixing. The way I produce, it's very much like what I can deliver to her is. It's very much a mix, and then she tweaks it even further and does, she did some incredible things in the studio where we did that. It was just really exciting and educating to watch. And then I got a mastering engineer, fantastic and just lovely guy called Felix Davis at Metropolis Studios. He mastered it. So it's not like I've not done the whole thing myself.
No, but you've done enough.
Well, yeah, I mean, and all the while, all through it, I'm talking to friends and, other people.
Yeah.
Like for instance, the actual artwork for the release, and this is part of a series, all of the actual kind of, I mean, you would call it CD or album artwork, single artwork. The actual physical artwork is it's all going to be part of a series, and I've produced the majority of it already for a number of releases. And this was partly inspired by a visit to the Tate, but also a really great friend of mine called Melanie King is an incredible photographer and artist, and she does a load of work in cyanotypes, which is this amazing way of sort of developing photos with using this kind of chemical process. Credit to her. She was definitely on the end of the phone a few times when I was, coming up with this idea of, playing around with, this way of making prints. It's a beautiful way of doing it, and again, there's so much like error in it. Even just like, just none of the colors are flat or perfect. Everything's sort of just undulating and moving around and that a bunch. I'm really looking forward to, I think my next release is going to be a track called End Love. And I'm actually looking at it right now, but the artwork for that is, I really love it. It's going to be great.
Well, yeah. I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, man.
The record was released on Self Love Records. Is that you?
I mean, yeah, it was. Well, that's mainly me trying to think of. Well, when I put it up.
Oh, yeah.
Via DistroKid.
Yeah. They ask for one, don't they?
They say like, this can be whatever the fuck you want it to be. Like, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, the music. The whole ethos of me making the music for myself.
Yeah.
and the messages amongst it it's very cathartic. And you know, there's been some sort of deep and dark moments in my life, and you know, so, and it's something that I've learned a lot. You know, I've learned to understand the importance of loving yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, self-love records. I was having an hour in for ages about the best way of putting it, and because self-love, I mean, not only does it sound a little bit sort of pleasuring yourself in a way, like, but it's also, you know, if you look beyond that, I mean, I have an idea. I've had it for ages, and I've yet to sort of work on it, but I've had this idea for sort of some t-shirt designs of sort of inverting the idea of like Cupid's arrow shooting at someone else, but shooting at himself because he loves himself, you know, or learning to love yourself. Like, this whole process of making music has just been, at the very least, running in parallel, if not completely conjoined, in me learning to sort of love myself more through all of this. And so hence self-love records, I guess, you know, just having a little bit of, you know, flying the flag. It's not an ego thing. It's very much just a sort of, you know, just looking after number one.
No, and in this day and age, this kind of positivity is very much talked about and stuff, and it's good to see that you're, even in the most subtlest ways, by putting it here and there, you're pioneering that kind of thing. Yeah, for sure. No, it's a you know, it's a conversation I have a lot with. I mean, I think we've even, you know, when we've chatted, we sort of talked briefly about some of these kind of things, and I have the conversation a lot with my friends, you know, about communication and, you know, sort of being there for people, but also being there for yourself. And I think it's really important to, you know, and, you know, not that I'm not trying to sort of sound down on it at all, but, you know, especially as guys, you know, we're sort of historically have been frowned upon for having emotions and having feelings, and 100%, I think it's really, really important to to develop those skills, because they are skills, you know, and they can be learned, you know, communication and compassion and love. Definitely they're skills to be learned and to be practiced, and, you know, no one's expected to get it right the whole time, but we can also, you know, we can enjoy the journey and reap the benefits. Yeah, I completely agree, man. This kind of leads on to the Akami Collective.
Yes, indeed.
With their podcast, or your podcast, Love Louder.
Yeah. I mean, this was an interesting one. And I mean, it's kind of explained in the first episodes. The first episode is kind of like, why are we all here? What are we doing? You know, what do we think we want to do? And but it started where, you know, a guy I went to college and university with. You know, so we spent like 5 years in parallel, you know, alongside each other, and we, through our own sort of insecurities mainly, we never actually kind of hit it off. We just sort of saw each other as threats, really. And it'd be about 18 or so months ago, I think. Maybe, 18 months ago, he posted on Facebook sort of going, I've got this idea, roughly in and around this, kind of these ideas. You know, anybody interested in me? And a whole bunch of people responded. And then, you know, the main premise, and it's such a, you know, albeit with the political world at the moment and the emotional and the mental health world and the, you know, the just gender inequality, you know, the whole thing, you know, it was so eloquently summed up in this quote that he has based the whole collective on, and the podcast, and it's what we talk about is, the quote he has is, there are far more people in the world that love, but those that hate louder. Yeah. So, and, you know, let's be honest, you know, as soon as you just say Trump at the end of that, you're kind of like, okay, cool, it all makes sense. Like that whole quote makes sense. there is so much love in the world, but the hate is the stuff that scares people, and it moves through, society.
And it's on even the podcast I listen to. Or the YouTube content I watch, it's not positive. It's all kind of taking the piss out of someone or doing this, and so it's nice to see these kind of. And I have seen a few kind of positive podcasts appearing.
I mean, the one thing we were very conscious of, in conversations we had before we started the podcast, and then we continue to sort of evolve within our use of language or use of understanding of where we're what we're saying and how we're saying it, but we never wanted it to be sort of like new age, and this is saying, there are religious people within the podcast, there are the spiritual people, but it was not about that. It was trying to keep things very human, keep things not only accessible but very just real, and on a level that it's like you don't have to buy into a philosophy other than the philosophy of not being a dickhead, really, just being loving people and understanding that that's not a sign of weakness, and showing signs of weakness are not signs of weakness. Being vulnerable, it's been the most interesting thing. For me so far of the podcasts that have been published, we had a conversation with a guy called John Purcell, who was former head of London Met and the London Transport Police or something. He was super, super high up in the police in London, just mental. And the conversation we had with him, and honestly, when you've got this guy in his, I think in his 60s, as far as I'm aware, must be. When you got him on the verge of crying, and this is not just being oh, cool, we made this dude cry, but it's been because he was so comfortable in opening up about stuff that he said after the podcast. He said he'd never told anybody some of those things. Really. And you're kind of oh my God, okay, wow, there's this massive responsibility and ability in this, this group of strangers to him. Albeit Chris, the main guy behind the podcast, is a relative of John's. Yeah. But, he walks into my house in Haringey, we'd sort of give him a beer and sit him down and shove a mic in front of his face, and something in the energy and the communication style allows him to open up in ways that he hasn't even told his wife. He said he was certain things. He was I've never even said that to my wife. And probably won't ever talk about it again. He said, it was just this is mental. Well,
there is definitely it is a very positive group of people involved in that podcast by the sounds of things, and it does sound like a positive energy, and it's a great listen. So if you guys get a chance, it's the Akami Collective with their podcast Love Louder. I'm pretty sure it's on all of the things. I listen to it on Spotify. Yeah, for sure, exactly. Yeah, Spotify and Apple Music, I think. Does anybody else use anything else? But yeah. All right, dude. I'm going to get on some Instagram questions, some polls later, but I want to ask you these questions as well. Go for it. So, who was the last artist you saw before quarantine? Trying to think. You know what? Here we go. Max Cooper was the last artist that I went to see. I went to Printworks to see DJ Cozy. Oh yeah. But Max Cooper was the one that really resonated with me that night. For sure. Was it a good one to end on, knowing that you might not see music for the next 3 months? Well, it was earlier in the year, so I didn't know I wasn't. I didn't know the live music industry was about to stop. I probably would have put in a bit more effort and gone to a few more gigs. Oh man, I don't know. What was the guy's name? Max Cooper. I don't know him, but I'll check him out for sure. In the electronic music sphere, Floating Points was there as well that night. It was part of the Printworks, I've never been to Printworks myself, but I've heard it is a brilliant venue.
Go in 2021 when you're allowed.
All right, I'll check it out. Did you have any shows coming up that you're gutted about that will probably be cancelled?
I mean, well, I know it's been postponed. I did have a show in support of a wiki group called Echo.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, that's been pushed back to. Well, there isn't a date yet.
Yeah,
because there's no point at this point. But no, it was a shame. That
show was put on by Ramen, wasn't it?
Ramen, yeah.
So Ramen is Javaid, who we spoke earlier, is a part of a collective. I suppose they're a label. I think that's what they call themselves.
Yeah.
They put that was the last night I went to before this all kicked off. Was their last night.
Yeah.
And it was a good one to send it all.
I mean, I must admit, my plan had been to go to that night, but I started getting weirded out by everything. For sure. And so I didn't. Yeah, no, which was a shame.
There was definitely a vibe there of this is our last night out for everyone. Wow. Everyone was going mad.
Well, there's some power in that as well, isn't there?
For sure, man. Probably not the best idea, but it is what
it's a complex one, isn't it? I think it's really, really tough.
Yeah. Whose album's going to get you through these times? Who have you been listening to recently?
I'm trying to think, really. I must admit, this last couple of weeks, I've just been... A lot of it's been sort of sticking to what I know. I mean, there's the new Fortet, the new Caribou stuff is great. If there was any one artist that and it's a different set of times, but there's, the thing that resonates in my mind is at a different time in my life, George Fitzgerald's album Fading Love.
Yeah.
Blew me away. It was one of the, but it also it helped me. That was I think, to be honest, if I'm honest with myself, that's the only record in my life that has emotionally helped me.
Right.
There was his song Crystallize. It was just mental. That resonated something rotten. So it was good.
Well, I'll have to have a listen to. I'm going to try. Whatever is getting other people through, I'm going to try and have a go at.
Definitely.
All right. Finally, who do you hope uses this time to write or release a project? Other than yourself, obviously.
I guess. Well, I mean, first off, I am a firm believer, and this is partly me talking to myself in this. It's I don't think we should feel obliged to do anything.
Definitely not.
Keep the love, and stay safe and sane. I think that is the most important thing at this point. But I think what I have found really interesting is just looking at socials about how it is allowing, albeit, big artists and, just your mate round the corner, the time to reflect and do things at a slightly different pace.
Yeah.
So what I guess my twist on that question would be more, I'm intrigued to see what comes out of this and how it is different than people had done stuff before.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think there's going to be a boom of projects, creative things, different things all coming out. It's going to be...
I think so too.
It's going to be a beautiful summer if we do get allowed out by then.
Well, the thing is, I guess we can still listen to it and enjoy it, and it will be a different soundtrack for a different summer.
Definitely.
I must admit, given that the majority of my work is in festivals, I am not holding my breath for any of that work coming through this year.
Well, we'll see what happens.
What a positive note to end on.
But it has been a pleasure speaking to you. I know we chat all the time. Me and Simeon are friends outside of work. But I thought
coffee in Haringey.
Big ups. But it's been a pleasure. And if you check out Simeon, he's again Simeon Rodgers. He's on all the medias, all everything.
Well, no, I say that. I must admit, recently I've knocked the Facebook thing on the head because it was just annoying me. So to be honest, it's Instagram, for the majority of social media, and then I guess YouTube and Spotify for
music. Well, I'll pop all the links that I can find for you in the in the description. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Thank you so much, dude. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for spreading the love.
No worries, my guy. No worries. All right, big thanks to Simeon Rodgers for having a chat with me. There are so many conversations that I could have with this guy. I reckon we'll have to have him back soon. Make sure you have a listen to his music by then. Maybe we can ask him some good questions. Right then, we're here with your Instagram questions. If you want to get involved next week, it's Wesley Strong 666. That's at Wesley Strong 666 on Instagram. We'll be dropping a poll probably on Monday or Tuesday. You can get involved, answer some of these questions. But this week, unfortunately, it is mostly about the isolation. It's mostly about the virus that's going on. Well, it's not exactly. It's about the bans and stuff related. Didn't want to get too bogged down in this. Everyone's talking about it at the moment. But first up, I went to the polls and I asked, who was the last artist you saw before quarantine? And for me, there's a couple. JW Paris, actually, they put on a wicked show. It was Dos Padres, the local legends in Bedfordshire. Dos Padres, supported by JW Paris, Gay Lips, and another band I can't remember the name of. I'm terribly sorry. But these are three juggernauts from the Bedfordshire area making rocking guitar music. So definitely check them out. Good friends of mine. Seriously, fucking great live show it was. The sound, a bit dead, but that's not their fault. It is what it is. It is what it is. They pulled it off despite that. So who else have we got? We got these.astra on Instagram. Catfish and the Bottlemen. I've never seen Catfish and the Bottlemen. I would love to. I like a few of their tunes. For me, I like the guy's style. What's his name? Van the Man. Van McCann? Van the Man? The Can Man. I can't remember. But I'd love to see those guys live sometime. I'm not the biggest fan, so they're lower on my list. Next up, Thick and Skin, wonderful leather painter, paints drum skins as well. Did me a wicked custom jacket for Crooked Teeth, like that a lot. She went to see Bombay Bicycle Club. I'm guessing that was Alexandra Palace, because I believe I was there too. Fucking wicked gig. Didn't love their new album. I don't know, nothing new. I thought every album before then for me was just so great, and they've always been pushing boundaries and just making great music. This new album for me was nothing special, but the live show still is incredible. Every Bombay Bicycle Club show I've been to has been incredible. Seen them a couple of times at Ali Pali, which I know is quite special to them. They say they grew up in Crouch End, so but yeah, I fucking great live show if that was the one you were at. Next up, Not Javaid. We chatted about him earlier on the podcast when we were chatting to Simeon. Jadoo Heart. Jadoo Heart, I've heard Javaid talk about Jadoo Heart. I've heard the odd song and stuff, but I've never really checked them out. But I did see some Instagram footage from him at that show. It looked like a wicked one. George vs. the World, Bladey. If this was the Bladey show that we went to together, that was too long ago. You don't go to enough gigs, dude. I mean, do what you want, but you don't go to enough gigs, dude. That was I don't know. I like those guys. There's the Drain Gang boys. I do like them. That show was interesting. The kids in the crowd were hilarious. Over on Facebook, we have got Mitch Trebek has come to us with Corey Wong. As the last person you saw, I'd love to see Corey Wong. I'd love to see all of the Wolfpack guys. I've never actually had a chance, but I'm sure at some point I will. Yeah, those guys are great. What shows are you gutted about being cancelled? That's the next question we got. What shows are you gutted about being cancelled? I personally am supposed to have a show sometime in May that's probably going to get cancelled. But that is what it is. Shows I'm gutted about being cancelled. God, I can't think of what. Fucking all of them. There's a million. There's a million shows that I don't want to get. I like to go to a show a week, and there's just can't even start to think of the bands that have been cancelled. But we've got Hayley Louise with Harry Styles. She's gutted Harry Styles. Yeah, dude, I've not seen Harry Styles live, but I do like his solo output. I would happily go to see him, and I'd be pretty good. But a lot of my friends went last year. They had a wicked time. Holly.wgg, La Dispute. Yes, I saw these guys about 6 months ago. They were fucking hell, they were brilliant. I'm not the biggest fan. My housemate Fraser is, who we always talk about on my YouTube videos. My housemate is, and he's got me into them, and I enjoyed a couple of their albums. But fuck me, brilliant live show. Sounds great live, really does. A lot of the vocals are kind of sat back in the mix on the records, and they don't do that so much when the live shows. But I don't think it's a compromise. I think it gives it a different. I don't know. It gives it a different vibe where you can really hear everything he's saying. It's real nice. La Dispute, fucking great song. Sad as shit. Like it. Gutted Holly. Sorry. Antonio Rodea. All of Wesley Strong's shows. Man, I'm gutted that they're getting cancelled too. But it is what it is. Antonio Rodeo, wonderful drummer in the local scene. Went to see his band Chunk. Check them out for sure. They're on Spotify and all that. Brilliant band. Brilliant jazz, hip-hop fusion kind of thing. Real great 3-piece. Brilliant. Definitely check those out. Chunk. Billy Diving in the Dirt, or Billy DITD. Highly Suspect. I don't know Highly Suspect too well. I'm assuming they're a punk band from those lists of punk bands that I accidentally skipped when I was listening to other punk bands. Highly Suspect. Rock band apparently. Oh, I don't know who these guys are. I'll have to check them out. Gutted that you're missing them though. If you like those, it is what it is, dude. Hopefully they'll postpone. Simeon mentioned Echo. We're all a bit gutted about that. That was going to be a big old show. Simeon was supporting Echo, and that was put on by the Ramen Sound Boys. They know how to put on a fucking good show. So if you're ever in town and you see anything by them, definitely check it out. All right, and finally for that we've got Hallie_XX_XX King Cruel. King Cruel. I didn't know he was playing at the moment. I suppose he's just had an album out. Makes sense. For me, the album's pretty good. It's all right. It's okay. I don't know. King Cruel is super hit and miss for me. I would love to see him live though. He's got a fucking cool ass aura about him. I do like that a lot. So, whose album is getting you through these times? Jagged Little Pill, the acoustic version. That's from Mitch Trebek over on Facebook. Let me just find out exactly if that's what I'm thinking it is. Yep, Alanis Morissette. Okay, cool. I never listened to that. I would definitely have a listen to that because that looks right up my street. Calm me down on these crazy days where we don't have a fucking clue what's going on. John Hopkins, Late Night Tales. That's from Not Javaid again. I've not listened to that one, but I tell you what, a load of those Late Night Tales are fucking brilliant. I can imagine that'll be real nice and calming at this time. Another La Dispute that's from Hayden Strong, bro. That's my brother. So he's obviously been listening to La Dispute, getting ready to go to that show, and it looks like it has not happened. I'm so sorry, bro. Honestly, if they postpone, make sure you get out and go and see them. They're wicked. Who do you hope uses this time to write or release a project? George vs. the World again. He says new UK hip hop. UK hip hop is a relentless beast at the moment. It won't stop. So hopefully it will continue. Hopefully there will be some more stuff from the whole of UK hip hop. I'm sure there will, dude. I'm sure there will. We got Tian Bunyan with YBN Corday. I thoroughly enjoyed his debut record last year. Hopefully we'll be out with some more stuff soon. I actually haven't listened to that in a minute. I might have a listen to that at some point over the next few days. Okay, and all those lovely fans that have said me, they hope that I release some stuff. And I'm looking to do so. I've got an EP on the way. So that's Jay Swinstead, Alice Satlin, and then Will, my boy. Yeah, got an EP on the way, working on that. Hopefully, I don't want to rush it just because this time has happened, but it's given me a chance to sit down and really, really get involved in it. It sounds awesome. I love the stuff that I've been writing. It's going to be a real project on its own that's going to sound different from the stuff I've recorded before, and probably different from the stuff that I'm going to record in the future. But for now, it's how I want to sound. I'm super happy with what I've been coming up with. So keep an eye out for that. But remember, you can always check out my previous stuff. Make your own little EP out of the 4 tunes that I released on Spotify. But no, it's been a pleasure doing this, guys. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Wesley Strong. You can find me on Spotify. You can find me on YouTube, Apple Music, anywhere you want to listen. Have a listen to my singles. Check out my videos on YouTube. Stay safe, guys. Don't go out if you don't have to. Who the fuck knows what's going on with the world at the moment. But it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed this. Let's do this again next week, eh?